Hello dear friends. In this session we are going to understand ES module in JavaScript. We'll also understand how to export and import modules from one file to another file. So what is basically a ES module is? ES module stand for ECMAScript standard modules, that is to be import or export from one file to another file. A module is just a piece of code that is written to solve a particular problem and that can be used in another file whenever required. So module is used to divide the code into several parts so that overall development will be simplified, or we can maintain the code easily, or we can debug it easily, or we can reuse it whenever required more easily. So for importing and exporting the modules from one file to another file, JavaScript allows us to export a function, object, classes, and primitive values by using export keyword. With the functions defined in one file, or the object or classes and some variables defined in one file can easily be exported in another file. So there are two kinds of export in JavaScript. One is named export and another one is default export. As per the named export allows us to export the variable or function by using its name from one file to another file. Multiple names can be exported at a time, but in case of default export, only one single variable, it may be either variable, function, it can be exported by default. So this is what a default export. So here we can export only one value at a time from the file, right? So let us understand by example how to use this import and export and how to define modules in JavaScript. So here in Visual Studio Code we'll create one file called suppose we'll create a file called student dot. I'm going to give an extension called mjs module JavaScript. So in this file I'm going to write some code student dot mjs. Suppose I'm going to return here, I'm going to write here constant name is equal to suppose uh, Darsh. Then constant const its id is equal to suppose 100, and I want to export these two variables in another file. So for that I can write the statement like this: export name comma id, export name comma id. Now this name and id will can be exported in any other file. So wherever I want to use these two variable, so I can use. So for using these two variable, I am going to create one more file called usestudent.mjs. Again, I am creating a module.js file so that I will able to run on this file directly in Visual Studio Code. So here I want to import this student.mjs file. I want to import this student.mjs file. So for that, I'm going to import the variables that is exported from this student.mjs file. So how can I import those variables? So I can import the variable like this: name, id, from, and from the file called student.mjs I want to import. So for that, I have to use the syntax like this: student.mjs. Now the name and id will be imported here. Suppose I want to print the name and id here. I can simply use console.log and I'm writing here name is equal to name, and similar to that I want to print the id, so I'm writing here id is equal to id. So now we'll check whether these two variables are imported here on this file. So for this I'm going to run this particular file. So you can see here the output is displayed like this: name Darsh and id is equal to 100. So in this way we can export the variables from one file into another file. Similar to that, if you want to export a function from one file to another file, we can export function also. So I'm again moving toward the student.mjs file. I want to create one function here. So I'm simply creating a function for addition of two numbers. So here I'm writing the function like this, and this function will return the addition of two numbers. So for that I am writing here return a plus b. Now I want to export this function from this file so that I will able to use this function in another file. So how can I export this add? So I can simply write add here, export curly bracket, name id and add. So I will able to use this add function in this use student.mjs. So how can I use? So here I'm going to create a variable called a, variable called suppose c, and is equal to I'm going to call the add function, and I want to pass the values to this function. But before using this add function, I have to use this add function here. So I have to import this add function here from the same file. In the same file I have declared the add function. So once I import this add function, I will able to call this add function here. So this function will return the addition of two number, and I just want to print the addition of these two number. So here I'm writing the message as addition and see. So now we'll check whether the addition is displayed here. So when I run the code, we can see here the addition of this number is displayed is 30. Now similar to function, if I want to export a class from this file, I can import class also, or I can import object also. So we'll create one class and one object in this student.mjs file. So I'm going to create one class here. So for creating class in JavaScript is we create a class like this. Suppose I'm going to create a class called test, and inside this test I'm going to write a function called constructor. So this will automatically call when we create object of this class. And now I want to print the message that this is what the constructor function. Whenever this function gets called, this message will appear. Now I want to add one more function into this class. So I'm writing this function called show, and simply I want to display the message as this is what the show function. Now I want to export this class. Now I want to export this class so that I will be able to use it in another function, another file. So this test class, I want to import. So I am making the copy of this test, and I am simply using this with export. So I am writing here test. So this test class will now be exported from this file. So now I want to use this class. I want to use this class in use student.mjs. So I am writing here. I want to import this class first. So for importing this, I have to write the test here, name of the class that I am importing here. So now I have to create the object of this test class. So for that, I am creating the object like this. So test class is imported. Whenever I create an object, constructor will get called. And from this t, or using this t, I want to call the show function which is declared in this class. Now I will check whether this code works fine. So when I run it, and we'll see here, so the constructor it gets called and the show function message is appeared. It means that we successfully imported a class from a student.mjs file. Now If I want to create one object in student.mjs, I can also create object and export the object. So for that, I'm creating object directly. Suppose var obj is an object that I'm going to create, and in front of that, I'm creating the object like this. Roll number is 10, and then name is equal to Ram. And if I want to add one more function into this object, I can write the function also. So here I'm writing here, suppose test function. Test is a function that I want to write, and this is what a function. So that to indicate it is a function, I'm writing function keyword in front of that, and I can define the function here. So in this function, I simply have to display the message, the test function to analyze whether this function fine, works properly. So syntax is like this: roll number colon 10. The 10 is a value to this roll number variable which is added in this object. Name Ram, and test is a function, and in which I simply displaying the message test function. Now to import this object from this file, I can write the object name here, export in curly bracket object, and to use this object here, again I need to import here. So to call the variables in this object, I can simply write the statement like this: console.log, then obj.roll number is a variable in that, and then similar to that, I am again writing the console.log and obj.name, which is one more variable in that, and I want to call the function also. So there is a function called there is a function called test. So to call this function, I am writing the statement like this. So I am writing the statement like this. So to call this function, obj dot test is a function in that. So here I have called this test function. So here I am calling the test. I need not to be used this console.log because this function is not going to return any value. I can directly call the function like this because object is imported here. So when I run it, we can see here the output is displayed like this. So roll number and this RAM is displayed here, and the test function from this object is also displayed here. So in this way we can use the named export, and we can export the variables, functions, classes and object from one file to another file with the help of this import and export. This is called the ES modules. So we'll have one more example of default export or the alias for this named export. Suppose I want to rename this name whenever I importing it. So I can write the statement like this. So if I write like this name as N, it means that I'm importing this name as N. So here instead of writing N, I cannot write here N a name. I should write here N, so that I will able to get the value of this name variable. So you can change the name of the variables at a time of importing the variable or at a time of exporting the variable. If whenever you are exporting the variables from here, you can also change the value name of the variable as I. So there in this file you will able to use this id as id, or you can rename it some another name. So in this way we can use the named export. So this is called the named export in JavaScript. To use this module in an HTML file, to use this module in an HTML file, so we have to create one more HTML file. So I hope you understand how to use import and export in JavaScript and ES module in JavaScript. Thank you.